So I've been to Susanville, San Quentin, Pelican Bay, CRC, CMC, Norco, which is the Hotel California, and Soledad prisons. Well, they have a reputation for being some of the hardest. And again, so when I first went to prison, I was 20, and again, I felt like I found a voice in there. And some old timers, they were in their 50s and 60s. They saw me. I walked on a weight pile. That's where, you know, the weights on the yard. I was a skinny 20-year-old kid, and they look, and I hear this word, Junior, Junior. And I didn't go by Junior, so I didn't answer, and I kept hearing it. Finally, I looked, I'm like, where's this noise coming from? These two big, huge, buff guys are waving me over, and they say, is this your first time in prison? I said, yeah. They said, you want to get big? I said, yeah. They said, work out with us. So I was 10 and a half, 11. I came home from school with my little sister. And I remember my mom being outside with her car, and the car was full of boxes. And I looked in the car and I said, hey Mom, what's in the car? And she said, don't look in there, Michael, that's a surprise. And I'm like, okay, just, you know, come home from school, all I wanted to do was eat and play. So I went into the house, and I was shocked to find the house empty. And I went into my bedroom, and I remember, I don't remember all that was missing, but I remember the TV that she bought me for my birthday, that was missing. And I started crying a little bit because I just out of confusion didn't understand what was going on. And I walked outside, and she was gone. And had my sister and me, and we went to live with my my dad, because my parents were split up before then. He'd drink a lot, work, yell, hit, do all that stuff. I mean, it wasn't totally terrible, but it wasn't the healthiest environment to be in either. Still to this day, never saw her again. She's dead now. I did get a letter about 5 years ago, saying that they found her dead. The FBI was actually looking for her right after she left, because she either robbed an armored car or was with the people that robbed an armored car and killed the driver. I mean, I'm not even ashamed of it now, but the thing is that, you know, there's always that kid at school that's, you know, that's dirty, that's unkept, or gets sent home with lice. That was me. I was actually that kid. I was quiet a lot, in my head a lot. And, you know, I wasn't thinking about traumas or how miserable my life was. I was actually just dreaming about what life could be at those times, or just thinking about something, you know, far off, or what my life would be like, you know, when I was growing up. I wasn't just you know, I'm quiet because I'm abused. I was just in my head planning for this grandiose future. I remember that. In high school, I actually tried to play football because I wanted to be popular, but I don't know if I was comfortable in my own skin, or, you know, I tried those conversations with kids. I just wasn't fitting in. And I thought, you know, maybe if I play football, I'll fit in. And I wasn't good at that. And I still didn't fit in. It actually just made me feel a little bit more awkward. You know, high school was just another stage in life. It wasn't this bad time. I wasn't even introduced to drugs in high school. But you know, a lot of people look back in their high school years, and I hear them talking, they're like, oh, we did this. It wasn't all these fond memories. It was just, yeah, I went to school, and after school I went home, or I went and sat in a park, or climbed a tree, or did something. So actually the drugs came when I was 17. So I had gotten out of high school legally at the age of 17. And my dad, I remember my dad he got mad at me, and he says, well, you're almost at the age where I'm going to kick you out. What are you going to do for a living? And I just wanted to drive truck. And I remember he swung at me, and I ducked, and he hit the microwave overhead oven. And I decided to move out at this time. I said, you know what, I'm done. And I looked at him and I said, I don't respect you. So I moved up north and got a job at a trucking company, washing trucks. I learned how to drive them and things like that. And I met some ladies that did drugs, and we tried it, and that changed everything. And I found that at that moment I was a lot more daring. It gave me the voice that I didn't have at the time. It gave me the courage that I didn't have. And it was a euphoric sensation of something at that time was missing.
When you first went to prison?
I was 20 when I first went to prison. And because of my love for big rigs and my daringness and stuff, I had gotten involved with a group of people that they didn't want the big rigs. They actually wanted the heavy equipment that the big rigs would carry. And at that time, I was drugged up, had no concept of consequences. Just figured, shoot, I'll go get an 18-wheeler and get you your equipment. And if there's a roadblock, I'll just blast through it. And that was my mentality. Just thank God there was never a roadblock for me to blast through, because I would have. So I've been to Susanville, San Quentin, Pelican Bay, CRC, CMC, Norco, which is the Hotel California, and Soledad prisons. Well, they have a reputation for being some of the hardest. And again, so when I first went to prison, I was 20. And again, I felt like I found a voice in there. And some old timers, they were in their 50s and 60s. They saw me. I walked on a weight pile. That's where, you know, the weights on the yard. I was a skinny 20-year-old kid, and they look, and I hear this word, Junior, Junior. And I didn't go by Junior, so I didn't answer, and I kept hearing it. Finally, I looked, I'm like, where's this noise coming from? These two big, huge, buff guys are waving me over, and they say, is this your first time in prison? I said, yeah. They said, you want to get big? I said, yeah. They said, work out with us. And I just hung out with those guys, and prison was it, especially Susanville. At the time, it had a reputation for being what was called gladiator school. And so there'd be riots on the yard. And there were always racial riots. Not that individuals hated the other races, but you know, the big riots were always racial. And I remember I had opportunity to gain the respect of the people that at that time I admired. And I jumped into every riot I could find. And then so, you know, through those times they transfer you. The multiple prisons, I actually went back to prison 9 different times. So I just couldn't get it right. I've done a total, let's see here, with good time credits and things like that, the amount of years that I was actually locked up was 8 years and 8 months total. Well, you know, I'd get out of prison with an idea, and I'm like, okay, this is that idea. And in those ideas, I never planned for adversity. It was always like I was going to get out of prison, and the first day I was going to create a business, and money and champagne was going to fall from the skies, and I was just going to work. And when I was met with any kind of resistance, I had a case of the F-its, and I'd go back to the crank pipe. And that was like my go-to every single time something didn't work.
So talk about Seth and Michaela. What happened and why?
So I had these, I wanted them. You know, when people are in their early 20s, they hear about unplanned pregnancies, and they weren't unplanned. They were on purpose. And because my foundation for life wasn't right, and I had a misconception of success, I kept going back to prison. And I had these 2 children, Seth and Michaela, and I was married at the time, and I went to prison, and my wife at the time had kept playing with the drug game, and abandoned them at a babysitter's house. And they ended up getting adopted out while I was in prison. And you know, the stories that they heard about me, they actually grew up hating me. I am in a relationship with Seth today, but it's a surface relationship. Trying to go deep is like digging in rock. And Michaela, my daughter, I hear about her, and she's getting into these crazy relationships, and I think, man, I know psychologically that she's looking for dad, and I'm not there. I'm not in those relationships that she's in, but she won't answer my calls or anything, but because of a memory that she thinks that she has of a loser dad.
Did you meet God in prison?
I did. A crazy way. I tell people there's no wrong motive for opening the Bible. I had screwed over so many people. I'd burned every bridge that I saw, every bridge that I crossed. And I remember this guy, a minister, came by my cell in San Quentin. I was on the 3rd tier Bayside in San Quentin. And he gave me a Bible, and I didn't want to talk with him. There 2 things were happening. I didn't have anything else to read. And I thought that if I learned a little bit about the Christians, I could actually con them. I could build a Christian business and make everybody think that I was a Christian. So I was reading just to kill time. I wasn't searching for truth. And something happened while I was reading. I mean, not the first day. It was about 2 or 3 weeks, reading the Bible and going through, learning history in the Bible, learning about this guy, Jesus, wow. And then my course got altered, and I'd been to prison 5 times this time. So you're like, hey, you got saved and you went back a bunch of times. I had this misconception of Christianity. And by, disclaimer, I believe everything that the Bible says today. But I was under the impression that just because I was a Christian, adversity wouldn't happen. And so when, again, I wasn't planning for adversity happened, back to the crankpipe. So when I met Dana, everything did change a little bit. Up before I had met Dana, it was about me having my dreams come true and me trying to create something for me and create an empire instead of a legacy. When I met Dana, I had failed so many times, and she had this youthful passion for life, and something shifted in my heart at that moment, and I realized that I could potentially find life by helping somebody else find theirs. And everything else I'd done had failed miserably, and I'm like, well, we could try something new. This lady has an amazing vision. Let's see if we can make her vision come true. If mine won't come true. And the crazy thing is that I found my purpose and my vision by helping her get hers. There were two instances that I would attribute to me waking up. One, I was already with Dana and we had the children, and I had this feeling of impending doom because I still, I wasn't still living right yet. I was trying to help her and everything, but there were still a couple things off. And I remember I looked at the house, and I'm out on the street, and I kind of started crying, and I said, Lord, whatever you do, please don't take this family from me. And the other thing actually simultaneously that actually woke me up was the service component. And again, I'll just tell people, you can't go wrong in serving. That's actually where you find life, and you actually wake up is through the act of service. My life today, my marriage today is something bigger, better than I could have ever even imagined. So if I could have, I couldn't have even dreamed back then of something this glorious. So, being a father, being a husband, my marriage today is actually, it's full of life, full of passion. I'm a grandfather. That's, wow. that's like one of the biggest blessings. I mean, being a father, being connected to your children, that's crazy cool. Crazy cool. If my children are, my relationship with each and every one of all 5 of the children, actually 4. I don't have a relationship with all 5 of them. I have a relationship with 4 of them. I have an individual relationship with each one of them. And the being a grandfather, giving them candy and just being the Disneyland grandfather, because I mean, I can send them home full of candy. That's a blessing. That makes everything worth everything. So, you know, I'd be in years, you know, sitting in prison, studying, being in the grass or something like that, hearing the distant sound of an airplane, looking up and seeing that, and I'm in prison looking up at an airplane flying above, and I'm thinking to myself, now that's freedom. That is ultimate freedom, to actually be able to fly that plane wherever you want. And I started to go after some of those pictures that I had in my heart of freedom. Today I am a pilot. And the crazy thing is that last week I flew over San Quentin with some people, and I go, look, there's San Quentin right there. And I was the one flying the plane over the prison. And I thought, holy shit, this is real. So if you're like, you know, thinking that your life has no tomorrow, or this is all your life is supposed to be, if you find out that you're having that question, think again. I mean, even your dark times, there are some lessons to be learned that will carry you far above the heavens, that'll give you something to give to somebody else, that you can look back and go, you know what? I know why I was at that point right then. So if that is you, don't give up. Tomorrow is really cool. I'm Michael Bryant, and this is my full disclosure.